Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Taxplanner support session. My name is Rizal van Jaarsveld, and I am the Business Development Manager for Taxbox. We are hosting the support session for you today. The purpose of this session, of course, is to provide additional support to our software users and potential new software users, which is, of course, the Tax Planner for individuals and trusts. Our software is an ever-changing and an evolving program, and since the rewrite of our 2020 software to the more modern code that complies with the SARS e-filing interface model, we've made quite a few enhancements and improvements to our software, which we would love to showcase for you today. Offering a free support webinar is also just another value-added service that we provide to our users. One of the most frequently asked questions that we receive is, why do I need tax software if I can just use SARS e-filing? And the answer is an easy one. We're not just in the business of submitting income taxes, we're also in the business of planning. So that's why we call our software the Tax Planner. Just to give you an idea, we had the budget speech in the last week of February, and we rolled out our 2020 software with the new legislation ready to go a week later. So that enabled all our clients to manage their clients' taxes well in advance, giving them peace of mind, as if you use SARS e-filing, you can only use it when the filing season starts or if a return becomes due, and sometimes that is almost too late. One of the proudest features of the software is the SARS e-filing interface, where you are able to connect your tax practitioner profile directly with the SARS interface, populating between the databases, and we are going to show you how to do that today as well. The new code that we wrote for our software also allows us to put our software in the cloud, which is a work in progress at the moment. And our desire is to release it at the end of the year or sometime this year. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Rizal, and I hope you enjoy.
Like I said, I'm Rizal. I do the development on Tax Planner. So I'm essentially the one responsible if there's anything that doesn't work. So to start off, I thought I'd just run you through an overview of the session and the areas we'll be touching on today and the order of events. So the first thing we'd like to go through today is the installation process and the process of activating tax years. Then we'd like to show you users or licenses and running concurrent sessions of Tax Planner. And then also how to do version upgrades. So those three items essentially covers more technical aspects of getting Tax Planner running on your system. Okay, thereafter we'll jump straight into Tax Planner Functionality, covering importing from our legacy system, copying data between tax years, capturing taxpayers, and then capturing financials with all those subheadings below them. And then moving into capturing tax and provisionals, and then finally using the SARS interface. Okay, I think thereafter we'll take a short break, and then we'll cross back over to Rizal for any closing comments and move into the Q&A, after which we'll then close. Okay, so once you've made the wise decision that Tax Planner is the world-class product everyone's talking about, and you've taken up one of the irresistible offers from our marketing department, you'll be sent an email, and this email will contain the download link for downloading the installer. You'll also receive an email once your order is confirmed and paid, and this email will contain an order number, which you also need to make a note of if you want to be making use of the online registration. Okay, so once you've managed to download the file, you'll have a taxplanner_setup.exe file, executable file. Now, there's a couple of things that I'd like to mention here. Depending on the browser that you're using and your security settings on your machine, there's a couple of things that may block your download. So I think maybe if I can just demonstrate. So I use Microsoft Edge, and I'm just going to simulate the download of Taxplanner. As you can see there, it's downloading the file. So once it's downloaded in Microsoft Edge, there'll be a security warning saying that this is an exe file and it could harm your device. Now, I assure you it's not a harmful exe, but there's a few clicks that you'd need to do to get through the download on your browser. So in Microsoft Edge, there'll be a little options button that you click on, and you can say keep. Another little security message comes up. Click on show more and say keep anyway. All right. That will then allow the download through your browser, security settings, and it will allow the file to download. Okay. Depending on your settings, it would typically go and lie in your downloads folder. Like I said, depending on your settings. And depending on how many times you've done this, it'll have a little number next to it if you've done this more than once. So the biggest number would be the latest one. But yeah, just check the date and time when the file downloaded. And then once you've managed to get through all the blocks to download the file, there may be some more blocks that might stop you from running it, depending on your antivirus, whatever antivirus you run, depending on your firewall, whether you are using a firewall that's run by your antivirus, whether it's the Windows firewall, whether there's a firewall on your server that you're connecting to if you're on a network. Any of these things could, depending on the security settings, block you from running this exe. So this differs from machine to machine. And if you are struggling with getting the exe to run, I think that because there's so many different ways that these things can be blocked, and so many different antivirus systems out there, it's probably best just to give us a call if you're having trouble getting the exe to run. Okay. So once you've gotten through all the blocks and you're able to run the exe, let me just get that up again. So you'll have the taxplanner underscore setup.exe file, which you'll then just double click. All right. Okay, very, very few options on the installer. I think the only one of note is the path. So it will default to FinSolve Taxplanner off your C drive. If you're wanting to specify a custom folder, then this would be the place to specify that. I'm just going to leave it at the default for now. Go next, the usual standard shortcut. Next, and that's it. If I go install, run through the installer. And that's it. Okay. Maybe one other thing to mention at this point, if I can just maybe simulate that as well. Just close that. Okay, and here we've got the main screen. So sometimes when if you've got Taxplanner installed on your machine already, and this is not the first time that you're installing, you might get a message during the installer saying that there's an application that's still running, and you need to close that application in order for the installer to complete. That little app that it's complaining about is the update checker. So Taxplanner has a little memory resident application that runs in your taskbar. I'm just going to start it up so I can see what it looks like. Okay. So if you have a look in the notification area on your taskbar, you'll see a little icon with the Taxplanner logo, and it's called Taxplanner Update Checker. If you click on it, it'll bring up a little window. And this little window essentially just tells you how often do we need to check for updates. Now, if this application is running, it won't allow you to get through the installer. So you just need to close it, and you do that by right-clicking on the icon in the taskbar, sorry, and clicking exit. So I just want to show you what the installer does if it is running. So let me just start it up again. All right, so there I have my update checker running, and I'm going to try and run the installer. Okay, so usual options, next, next, and install. So here it tells me following applications are using files that need to be updated by setup, and it is recommended that you allow setup to try and automatically close. Now, in my experience, Windows does not allow your application to close the whatever is running. Okay, I've got both running now, Taxplanner as well. So it would be advisable to manually close whatever applications you still have running. In this case, Taxplanner and the update checker. So to do that, click on the little icon, right click, and say exit, and then just next, and it will allow the installer to complete. Right, so before we run that, let me just simulate the first run. I'm just going to take that out. Okay, so once your application is successfully installed and it is now living off your C drive, FinSolve Taxplanner, and you have your shortcut on your desktop, like so. All right, there's two shortcuts it creates. One is for the application, and the other one is to start the backup and restore functionality for backing up your database. So if it's the first time that you've installed Taxplanner and you're running it for the first time, then the following will occur. So on the first run, you'll get a little message saying that do you want to register your product, or do you want to carry on with the demo? Now, the demo runs for a period of 15 days. It's fully functional. The application is fully functional, but it will disable everything after 15 days. So on the first run, if you've made your purchase and you have your order details and your order number, you can go ahead and click on register. This will bring up the Taxplanner registration screen. And at this point, there's a couple of details that you'll need to fill out. The registration name, there's no real validation on that. So that is typically your company name or your business name. So let's just make that. And then the product level, the level that you've purchased, whether it's a Taxplanner 10, 50, 200, 600, and so on. So I'm just going to go with the unlimited. And then very important, the number of users. This is the number of licenses that you've purchased. Okay, I'm going to leave it at 1 for now. The mode, whether it's a desktop installation or a server. The serial number is automatically filled in there for you. This is the serial number of the hard drive that you're installing on. So your installation or your license is linked to the hard drive that you're installing it on. Okay, so if you do for some reason need to replace your hard drive or move Taxplanner to a different machine on a different hard drive, you would need to re-register the application. Okay, and then the registered year, that would be the tax year. And then also the order number that was supplied to you when you made your purchase. Okay, so what happens is the order number is used when you process your online registration. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a little test order on our server just to demonstrate how that functions. Just give me a second. First run, all right, comes up with a message. Click on register. fill out the details. Unlimited. Let me just check if that is unlimited. Yes, it is. It's got one license, and the license here is for 2020. One license here is for 2020, and my order is test. Just one thing to note, all of these details have to be exactly correct as it was supplied to you when you made your purchase. If anything is different, let's say, for example, I chose Taxplanner 600 instead of Taxplanner Unlimited, and I try and process the online registration, it'll fail. And it'll give you an error saying that you need to contact the software vendor. So all of these things has to be exactly right, including the order number. Let's do that. Okay. And then it says successfully registered, and it will automatically register your application. Okay. It shuts down, so you need to start it up again. And your license is active. So one thing to note, if you only have one license for a single year, it will log you directly into that year. So we've just registered a license for the 2020 tax year. So it's logged my application directly into the 2020 tax year. Okay, so that takes us to the next step, activating new tax years. So if you've registered 2020 and that's licensed, and you've now logged into 2020, and you've decided that the application is for you, and you purchased 2021, you will need to come into your application under File, Taxplanner Registration. Very similar to the initial process where we initially registered the 2020 year. You just need to select which year it is that you're wanting to register. So let's say we've purchased a license for 2021. Click on that year and say register new license. Exactly the same process. Fill out all the details supplied to you when you did your purchase. So I'm going to make that Taxplanner Unlimited. Process online registration and registers. Okay, so now close down the application. When you start it up again, you'll now have the two license years that you've purchased licenses for. So you can then from here select either 2020 or 2021. So let's go 2021. So Taxplanner, or the new platform of Taxplanner, if you've been using Taxplanner for a while, in past years, for each tax year you would have a new system. But on the new platform, it's different to the legacy system when it comes to accommodating new tax years. So all of the tax years live in the same application. And the way that you swap between the two of them, so we've got 2020 and 2021, is just by clicking on the tax year on the top here on the function menu. If you click on it, it will bring up the selection box with the years that you've got licensed. And then from there, you can select which tax year you want to log in as. So I've logged in as 2020, and I'm now going to change to 2021, and it will refresh all your data, showing you the 2021 tax year. So yeah, to swap between the two, click on the tax year on the top, and then select the tax year that you want to be working with. Okay. Anything else I need to say there? I don't think so. Okay. So moving on to users and concurrent sessions. So when you purchase a license, a year license, you'll have the option to select the number of users you'd like to purchase that license for. So in other words, if we go to the Taxplanner registration screen here, and we just have a look in one of these, there's a numeric value for users. So this essentially refers to the amount of licenses or the amount of concurrent sessions that you'll be able to run concurrently at the same time. It doesn't mean that if you've only got one user that you can't install this on a server and have multiple workstations. you still can do that with one user. It only means that only one session can run at one time. So if you've just got one user, then one workstation can operate at a time. If you want another workstation to log on, then the first workstation needs to close. So this just refers to the amount of concurrent sessions that you can run at a time. So if I can just demonstrate what it will do. So I've got a session running now. If I try and start up a second session, for 2021, it'll tell me that my maximum connections has been reached, and it'll give me a little number in brackets saying how many licenses are currently in use. So if I upgrade my license, let's go back in there. I go to the Taxplanner registration screen, and I say I want to, okay, let's use 2020. I want to upgrade that to 2 licenses. Okay, so now I've got 2 licenses registered for the 2020 tax year. So I'm gonna try and log in with 2020 now. And you'll now see that I've got 2 sessions of Taxplanner 2020 running now. Because I've got 2 licenses, it allows me to run 2 sessions. If I try and run it again, it'll tell me that my maximum connections has been reached and give me the number of sessions that's currently open. Okay, let's just close down one of these, start that up again. And that is essentially how you would activate licenses and what it actually means for the concurrent sessions. I think just at this point, I'd also like to mention that we have had queries in the past where clients have run a session and there's only one session open, but they're still getting the message saying that they've reached their maximum limit. Now, there's a couple of things that could have happened. The session log, there's a session log that keeps track of the amount of sessions open. It could be that your system crashed and the session log was not cleared properly. Perhaps you lost comms with the network, and again, comms with the session log, and the session log wasn't cleared properly. We are going to make available in a future release a utility where you can view all the sessions and close them if necessary. But for now, there's a simple solution. If you do end up in that situation where you have a session running and you are absolutely certain that you have no other sessions running, but you're still getting that message, you can manually clear the session log by deleting the file. So if you look in the application folder, right click on the icon and go open file location, okay, which will bring up the location of where the application is installed. There's a bunch of files here, but there's a file called tpcu.tpc, and that is the session log. So tpcu.tpc, and you can just delete that file. Okay, you have to obviously have these things closed and delete that file, and that will essentially clear the session log, and then you can try again and it will allow you in. You won't get that that maximum connections message. Okay, so that's just something to note. If you do get the message and you're absolutely certain that there's no concurrent sessions running, then just go in and delete that file, and it'll allow you in. But as I said, we will be making a utility available for you to view all the active sessions. Okay, so I'm going to move straight into version upgrading. Okay, so Taxplanner is a continually evolving suite of software, and this is so in order to meet our clients' needs, as well as to stay current and relevant. And for this reason, there will always be upgrades throughout the year, not just the normal annual legislative changes, but there will always be, throughout the year, there'll be upgrades. So there's a few ways that you can upgrade your system when a new version is released. Um, when when an update is available, you'll receive a notification via email informing you of the new release. And this email will contain a download link, um, much the same as you would have received on your initial purchase. So it'll be a link that will take you to the download of the upgrade. As I said, it's exactly the same process as you would on the initial install, or you'll receive a notification from the system that notifies you that there's a new version available. Now that notification comes from that little app that we spoke about earlier. Let me just start that up again. Where is it? Update check. So on this little icon, text box icon in your notification area, if you click on it, it has a few options here. Okay, it shows you the current version that you are currently running, and it also shows you the latest version on the server, available on the server. So if there's a newer version available, depending on your frequency settings on the right here, it'll notify you that there's a new version available, and it will also give you the option to download the file. Now, again, the same security settings will apply that apply to your browser and your antivirus and your firewall on the initial download of the software. So if you are having trouble using the automatic download from this application, chances are something is blocking it. So we've got a manual link here that you can click on that will essentially just open the browser and download it via the browser. So if I click on this link, it'll open up my browser and do the download manually through the browser. And the same procedure will then apply to get the download through the browser. Okay, that's the one way. Otherwise, if you don't have any issues, it will automatically download and start the installation. Now, there's a couple of options on how many times you want to check if there are updates. So you can do it hourly, and you can set the amount of the interval of how often you want to check. You can do it daily, so every day it will check, or you can just set it to I'll check it myself. Okay, and then it won't notify you at all if there's a new version available. You can then manually come into this app and then check if the versions are still the same, and download it if there is a newer version available. And that is essentially it for the version upgrades. So I think we can move straight into Taxplanner functionality. Okay. So if you are one of the clients, like most of our clients that have been using Taxplanner since the dark ages, you would certainly not want to recapture all the information that you've captured in the legacy system. So we've built a facility to import your data from the legacy system. When I say legacy system, it refers to the system that you were using in the past before the new platform. Let me just get to that shortcut. So when I say legacy system, I'm referring to this version of Taxplanner, which came to an end in 2019. So if you have been using Taxplanner before and up until 2019, and you have all your data captured in this system, and you decide to move on to the new platform, we have a facility to import the data from the legacy system into the new platform. So I'm just going to start up the new platform again. So in order to import the data, as you can see at the moment, we've got nothing captured. You go to transactions, and the first option there is import legacy tax plan data. So we click on that. It will then ask you from which year would you like to import from. It will populate the default location for the 2019 year for the legacy tax planner. If you have installed your software in a custom location, then this would be the place to specify that folder. So if you haven't used the default program files Taxbox TPA 2019 folder, and you've got it in your own custom folder, then you would click this little button and go select that folder where your 2019 application is installed. Mine is installed in the current in the default folder, so I'm just going to leave it like that. I'm going to say process, and it'll bring up a list of the 2019 taxpayers that I've got captured in my legacy system. So if I go to my legacy system here, you can see that there's 4 taxpayers captured in here, and it's brought up that 4 taxpayers in the import. So just to note, you have a couple of options here to import. You can either import specific ones by selecting them, by double clicking on them, or you can tag them all. Okay, but important to note, only the green ticks are going to be the ones that's going to be imported. So if nothing is tagged, nothing is going to be imported. So I'm just going to tag them all. And then on the right here, you have a few more options. Income deductions, fringe benefits, allowances, other income, and assets and liabilities. So these are the financials for these taxpayers. If you want to import the financials for these taxpayers, then you select them. If you only want to import the personal data, like the name and surname and the ID numbers and everything related to the taxpayer, but not wanting to import the financials, then untag these things, and it will only import the personal data. Okay, but I'm just going to import all of it. Click on import. Okay. So at this point, it'll bring up a message asking you if you want to clear the data or if you want to append to the data. Now, this refers to your existing data in your the tax year that you've logged in as. Let me just go one back. So when you're doing the import, you are always importing to the tax year that you've logged in as. So I've logged in as 2020. So if I'm importing here, it will import to tax year 2020. So I can essentially import from any other year. So I can import from up to 2016, I think, as we go back as far as 2016. I can import the data from that tax year into my 2020 tax year. So if you have data, you haven't purchased 2018, 2019, but you have 2016 or 2017, you can still import your data onto the new platform. Okay. But just to note, the import will always happen to the tax year that you are logged in as. Okay, so I'm just going to say process, tag them all, tag everything, and say import. So like I said, this option or this message is relating to the tax year that I'm logged in as. So if I say clear, it means clear all the data in my 2020 tax year and import the data from my legacy system. If I say append, it's going to leave all the data in my 2020 tax year intact and just add these taxpayers to my list of already existing taxpayers. So in my case, I've got nothing in 2020, so it doesn't really matter what I select here. If I say clear or append, it's the same effect because I've got nothing in my 2020 tax year. So I'm just going to say append. It's going to say, give you a message. If there's any duplicates, it will have to be manually removed. So in other words, it doesn't check if there's already a tax Thomas in your 2020 tax year. It's going to import that record. And if you already have one existing, then you would have to manually go and remove the duplicate. Okay, it's done. And there you can see is the list of taxpayers that we've now imported from 2019, and it's now sitting in my 2020 tax year. Okay. Okay, I think I've mentioned that already. Just check my notes. Okay. Right, so you can see on the right hand side here, it's imported the taxpayer with its financials. So if I scroll through them here, you can see that it's brought through financials as well. Okay. All right. So I think we can move into capturing taxpayers. So there are essentially 4 ways to get taxpayers. Oh, sorry. Before I go into capturing taxpayers, let's just go to copying data between tax years. Let's go there. Okay. So now that I have some data in my 2020 tax year, okay, and I've registered the license for 2021, and I don't really want to go and capture all the information in 2021, and it's the same taxpayers. So we have an option to copy the data from a previous year into the current year. So again, whenever I do a copy, it's going to be to the year that I'm logged in as. So I'm going to go and select copy taxpayer data. It's the second option on the transactions list. Okay, and this will bring up a screen with 3 list boxes. Okay. First option or the first action to take is to select the tax year to copy from. So I've got all my taxpayers in tax year 2020. So I'm just going to select 2020. Okay, so what that does is in the first list box on the left, you'll see that it brings up the available taxpayers in the 2020 tax year. So it just means that these are the taxpayers that exist in 2020. So in the second list box here, that would be the taxpayers that you've selected to copy. So it hasn't copied yet. You're just selecting them to copy to your 2021 tax year. So you do that by selecting the taxpayer, clicking the little arrow in between, the right facing arrow, and you build a list of taxpayers that you want to copy to 2021. And if you're not happy with that one, you can take it back, but I'm just going to do them all. So in other words, it's taken from the available taxpayers and it's moved it to an area to copy. So it's built a list of taxpayers that you want to copy to 2021. It hasn't done the copy yet. That is the last step. So the last list box shows you what taxpayers you have existing in your 2021 tax year. I've got nothing at the moment. And clicking the button in between will essentially copy them from 2020 to my 2021 tax year. So I'm just going to do that. And it copies the taxpayers from my 2020 tax year to 2021. So if I close this now and I go and refresh my 2021 tax year, you'll see that the 4 taxpayers is now existing in 2021 as well. By default, it brings everything through, so it brings the financials along with it as well. Okay, so that is essentially the copy from between tax years. And you can do this between any tax year. It doesn't have to be a previous tax year. If you are wanting to copy something from 2021 back to 2020, you're welcome to do that. Not that you'd ever want to, but you're welcome to do that as well. Okay. Okay, I think we can move straight into capturing taxpayers. So there's essentially 4 ways of capturing information into Taxplanner. The first one was importing from the legacy that we've discussed. The second is copying between the two, between tax years that we've also discussed. The third would be importing from the SARS interface, using the SARS interface that we will discuss later on. And then obviously the fourth would be manually capturing them. So we'll touch on that now. So in order to, once you have some taxpayers here or you don't have any and you want to manually capture a taxpayer, you click on the little green tick button on the top of the list box here. And that'll bring up the personal data screen where you can then specify the details for that taxpayer. Now, at this point, there's not much required to capture. So if you don't have all the detail, you don't have to capture them. You can just capture the name and surname. And I think it's the date of birth, and you can save it at that point. It is important to note, though, that if you are using the SARS interface, there are quite a few things that are required for the interface. So in other words, things like the ID number, the date of birth, marital status, even the address details is the interface is very rigid when it comes to the layout of things. So it has to be in a certain layout, and that's the reason why we've got it laid out as it is, because the SARS interface requires it to be in that format. Even when it comes to telephone numbers, has to have either the 3-digit or the 4-digit area code. So in other words, 021 300 1230 or 2721 300 1230. And that is for the SARS interface. If something is a miss here, you'll get an error when you try and submit something via the SARS interface. So just important to note these values for the telephone number, 3-digit area code or 4-digit area code. And to fill these things out in the layout that it's required for the SARS interface. So I'm just going to capture a few things here. Initials, title. Okay, date of birth, marital status. Okay, it's not required on the initial capture, but it does have an effect on things like capital gains, investments. So your marital status, if you are, for example, married in community of property, I know that has an effect on the investments. You also have the option to select whether this entry is deceased or not, and then specify the deceased date. I think that also has an effect on the capital gains calculation. Someone with a bit more tax experience will be able to give you more detail on that. But it does have an effect further down in the calculations. So I'm just going to capture that for now. Taxed as an individual. Taxplanner caters for the tax calculations for individuals, trusts, and special trusts. So you need to select what type of entity this is. Tax reference number, also very important for the interface, as well as these things at the bottom here, but these things are automatically filled in for you when you connect via the interface, but we'll cover that at a later stage. Employer info, also for the tax for the SARS interface, very important to fill out. And in the last tab, related to IT12 returns, some of these things are automatically filled in when you submit via the interface, and some of them are for reporting purposes. So I'm just going to leave it at that for now, just to demonstrate capturing the taxpayer manually. So if I save that, you'll see that it will add a new entry on the left here. So in terms of the interface, you'll always have your taxpayers listed on the left in a list. That's the one that I've just captured. And as you scroll through them, everything on the screen is relative to the one that you have selected on the left here. So if I click on Jimmy James, the information in the summary and in the detail, if I should be in a detail screen, is relative to the one that I've got selected on the left. So if I click on the next one, you'll see it'll update to that taxpayer's details. Okay. Okay, just maybe if I can mention, if you want to delete taxpayers. Now, Taxplanner's licenses are driven by number of taxpayers. So if I can just show that quickly. If I look at my registration or my license, okay, I've currently got the unlimited version, which means that I have no limit on the number of taxpayers that I can register or capture in my tax planner. But if I should have one of the lesser licenses, like the 600 or the 1,000, then that's limited to the number of taxpayers here. So you'll see that there's a number of taxpayers, 1,000 taxpayers. So in other words, I can only have 1,000 taxpayers if I've got that package. So if you're wanting to delete a taxpayer, let's say you don't no longer do that person's taxes and you want to delete him off your database, there's a little red minus sign there that you can click on, and that'll essentially delete the taxpayer. But it still exists in the database just as a security measure in case you may have deleted this taxpayer by accident. So if I go and say show deleted, you'll see that Jimmy James is still there, but he's sort of grayed out. That just means that the taxpayer has been marked as deleted, but it hasn't permanently been deleted from the database yet. So if you want to make space, let's say, for example, you've hit your limit, you've hit 1,000 taxpayers, and you don't want to upgrade to the unlimited version just yet, but you need to be removing some of your taxpayers to make space for others, then you need to permanently delete that taxpayer from your database. So in other words, you click on show deleted, you go select that one, and you just delete him again. And that you'll bring up a confirmation message saying that this action will permanently remove taxpayer Jimmy James from the database, and this action cannot be undone. Are you sure? Yes, and it will remove it from the database, and it will free up that space in your limit of taxpayers. But just important to note, if you do delete a taxpayer and you haven't permanently deleted him from the database, then it will count on your taxpayer limit, the amount of taxpayers that you have.